Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, folks. Michael Zuber, one rental at a time, and this is a dream session for me. When I created one rental at a time, it was one guy, in his kid's bedroom, just talking about his experience buying one rental at a time while working full time. What has transpired over the last 3 or 4 years is obviously a growing brand, a growing story. But really, what we've done on this channel is we're starting to attract other amazing individuals, and we have two of them today. We have Spencer Cornelia, which undoubtedly all of you follow and watch out of Vegas, and Todd Baldwin, who is a Sunday expert, who is holding the most precious little boy right there, Bishop. Oh, we got a yawn on camera.
Yeah, he's sleepy, but he's good.
There you go. Who comes to us from CNBC fame and all of that stuff. These two gentlemen are giving us 60 to 90 minutes of their Saturday to answer your questions about house hacking. As I told you in the daily financial news the last couple of days, my goal is quite simple. I want to change people's lives today. These two gentlemen have done amazing things, and I believe we will hear in the next 60 to 90 minutes that house hacking was the start. It simply allowed them to control their expenses. It essentially allowed them to live for free or get paid to live, which removed pressure. It allowed them to do other things. But we are going to hear from them. So, Todd, since you have the precious Bishop in front of us, why don't you introduce the audience, talk about house hacking, just give us a couple of 3-4 minutes to set up our story together.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for coming. Appreciate your time. I'm happy to be here. Yeah, so house hacking for me has been an absolute game changer. I'll turn his little face around in a second so you guys can see him, but he just got to do some soothing. I did it probably the way that nobody wants to do it, where you buy a single family home and you rent out bedrooms. I know that most people out there don't want to live with roommates. I did it when I was 23, so it was like, it was just sort of normal. Without exaggeration, house hacking made me millions and millions of dollars. Now, part of that was luck. Full admit, because I bought property in 2015 in Seattle. Mm-hmm. And so, some of my real estate literally has doubled. And then I sold it last year. But the concept of living for free and getting paid to live, my best house hack ever was I was living completely for free in a brand new property, making $1,800 a month from the house that I lived in. So I think if you're under 30 and you don't have kids, and you're not at least thinking about house hacking, I think you're missing a huge opportunity to live for free and build wealth.
Totally agree. Love that. Look at this. Look, and Bishop's what, 8 days old, 9 days old?
This is his 9 days old right now. And I actually plan to eventually buy this little guy a cash flowing rental house on a 15-year mortgage. So by the time he turns 18, he will already own a rental property in full, paid off.
That's an amazing goal. I look forward to it. And again, folks, this is not a new goal. You and I shared this as one of your expert series 3 or 4 months ago. So I know you're going to get it done. So Spencer, unfortunately, you need to follow Bishop, which is going to be hard to do. I appreciate it. But if anybody can do it, you can. So tell us about yourself and your experience with house hacking as we get into this.
I'm a YouTuber and I love to house hack. I've done 4. I started with a condo here in Las Vegas, and then I currently hold 3. So I sold the condo back in 2019. I currently have 3 properties, and I go to the extreme as well, just like Todd does. My first single family house hack was a 7-bed that I still own to this day, where I have 7 individual people living under the same roof. So I've gotten to experience all the ups and the downs. A quick funny story, I was on No Jumper podcast, a very popular podcast on YouTube, and we were talking about house hacking, and I said, I felt like I've experienced all the ups and the downs, and thankfully I still haven't dealt with someone trying to light my house on fire. within the next month, I got to deal with that. So, so I can share all the headaches as well. Yeah. I feel like I'm more than qualified to speak on that.
Absolutely.
But at the end, I still will agree that house hacking is probably the best way to start for every real estate investor.
Yeah, I agree. So there's a couple of things I just want to level set. Again, folks, remember, if you're joining this, it's because I want you to ask questions. We have these guys. They are here for your questions. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes because I have some setup here. But again, ask your questions. And again, just so you know, as I've said on the daily financial news, today, house hacking roommate style. Next Saturday, we're going to go house hacking units, duplexes through quads. It's a different mindset. As I have said, and I believe every 18-year-old or 17-year-old as a senior in high school should learn house hacking, at least what it is. I did not learn about house hacking until I was in my 40s. Some of that's I'm a Gen Xer. Maybe it wasn't around. Maybe I wasn't looking for it. I have said publicly, if I had to do everything over again in life, I would have house hacked at 20 years old. I was already making enough money. I could have done it. I was married at 19, right? I did a lot of things wrong in life. One of them was I didn't house hack at 20. I could have done it and I should have done it. So Spencer, since you're on camera, we'll go to you first and we'll go to Todd next with this question. I just want to ask it this way. Would you be where you are today if you didn't start house hacking?
Absolutely not. With lenders, you can have a much higher income to show when you want to go get your second or third property. And at the time of the purchase of my first single family, I probably wouldn't have qualified for my second one without the income, because I was a YouTuber and lenders look at YouTube like a little different income. But thankfully, I was able to show I can't remember exactly what they qualify me for, because the income for my single family, they look at the market rent, they go, wait a second, you're claiming
how are you doing that?
Yeah, I'm claiming 4,600 on my taxes, and the market rent's like 2,200 or something. But yes, I was able to get that. The house I live in now is my new primary, is significantly nicer, and I wouldn't have gotten here without the house hack income.
Oh, awesome. And Todd, same kind of question. Would you be where you are today if you had not started house hacking?
Not at all. So, I bought my first house with my girlfriend when I was 23 years old. We're married now, so it all worked out. I don't recommend anyone buy a house with their girlfriend, but for me, it worked out beautifully. My market is very expensive. I'm in Seattle, and I have a house where the cash flow, not the gross rent, but the monthly cash flow is $4,000 a month.
Whoa.
It brings in about $8,000 a month in total, and $4,000 is pure profit. And, because of that, my unorthodox style, just like Spencer is doing it, very unorthodox. We got noticed by a few media companies and, news stations, what have you, whatever it is. And we sort of just had all these interviews about house hacking, which led to other opportunities. And this is a little bit of a segue, but I'll bring it back. Don't you worry. I recently closed a wholesale deal, and after this, I'll send you the numbers to back it up, Zuber. It took me literally 8 hours of work. I did it after this guy was born. My assignment fee was $740,000, $250,000. Now, the only reason that was possible.
No, hold on. $250,000 or $750,000? Sorry,
$740,000, 740,000.
Again, one assignment fee, $740,000.
8 hours of work in total. Yes.
That's a horrible hourly wage. I don't know why you're doing that. It's terrible.
But so here's the deal. How was I able to do that? Well, the client that I worked with read an article about me because of house hacking. Now, I'm not saying if you start house hacking, you're going to automatically get on the news and on television. That's not what I'm trying to say. It's just that had I never actually bought a house and rented it out by the bedroom, I wouldn't have been able to build a real estate company that would have allowed me to get noticed, that would have put me in a position to make $740,000 in 8 hours of work. I mean, I can't even believe it. I can buy 2 McLarens and still have some walking around money from just one day of work. And the thing is, I don't even like McLarens. So it's all going back into real estate. So, it's crazy.
Yeah. So you and I think talked about this off air 3 or 4 weeks before Bishop was born. Was it that deal? Right. Your network said, hey, yeah, basically the story is I'll sanitize it. So, we protect the innocent. Basically, there was somebody who had a very expensive piece of real estate. They did not want to list it for privacy reasons. They came to you because you have a network of buyers in this space. You said, hey, if you can get me this number, you can keep anything above that. And you got $740K above that. You win, they win, buyer wins, everybody's happy. Essentially.
Yes.
Well,
absolutely.
That doesn't suck.
It doesn't suck. Yeah. I mean, it just, a few years ago, I never would have thought this was possible. Yeah. And I know there's a lot of fake gurus that will say anything, like anyone can say anything online, but with this sort of thing, and I won't spoil it too much, but if anyone follows Market Watch and their Firestarter series, they're going to be doing an episode about me about this specific thing. And they have to verify all that, like they go through bank statements and everything. So I promise you it's not BS. If it was, Spencer would crucify me. That's what he does. He crucifies the fake gurus. So it's, you know, and again, it all comes back to, I believe that every spot I am in life, good or bad, is a sequence of events about decisions that I made, right? Like that's where I am. My life is an accumulation of all the decisions I've made. And I made the decision to start house hacking when I was 23. And that led me down this path to be able to make $750,000 in a day on one assignment fee for one deal. And so it all comes together, you know, everything you do matters. And I think house hacking is a beautiful way to start. Yeah. So Spencer, we're going to come back to you. And again, folks, remember, please start putting in the chat your questions. I will get to you momentarily. We will go top down. So the earlier you put in, the earlier your question gets answered. Spencer, obviously you have gone on to build a very, very large YouTube presence, just killing it in that space. You're branching out into other functions. But again, we got to go back to house hacking, right? House hacking was the way you lowered your monthly expenses. It gave you time freedom so that you could create amazing videos that nobody watched, that ultimately got watched, and you grew from there, right? If you had a full-time job, you wouldn't be where you are today. So house hacking really, again, was that early decision that gave you time and less stress that allowed you to become who you are today and will become much bigger in the future. Is that fair? House hacking allows for a runway because everyone's biggest and most important expense is living. Yes. Most of us could theoretically get rid of our car if we had to, like if we had to go to the absolute minimum. And so with house hacking being able to eliminate the most important expense, you now have whatever reserves you have. If you wanted to pursue some endeavor, you now have a much larger runway to allow for you to pursue whatever that is. And for me, thankfully with YouTube, that allowed me to take a little more risk because I didn't have to go back to my job. And because all my living expenses were covered, I didn't have that stress of, oh no, I only have 6 months to make this happen. It was just, I'm just going to eat rice and beans until I make this happen, which I'm okay with. Yeah, that was awesome. All right, so now let's tackle some of the hair, right? When we talk about house hacking, I think most people gravitate to units, right? I don't want roommates. So let's just tackle roommates head on. So let's talk about your first experience. So, okay, I'm going to buy a house. I'm going to have roommates. Spencer, we'll start with you since you're on camera. Was your first experience like, hey, you got 4 buddies and you knew who your roommates were going to be, so you were already kind of set? Or did you roll into this going, oh, got to put up a Craigslist ad and try to figure all this out? I mean, how does this start, this idea of getting roommates? I'm definitely a fire, aim, ready kind of guy. So I don't fire, aim, ready? Okay, got it. Yeah. I bought a condo. Thankfully, it was in a very nice area, Las Vegas Country Club here in Las Vegas. You would consider it probably an A neighborhood. Sure. And I actually paid a friend to break his lease so I could start on with a buddy. That went well. And my condo actually was nothing but a good experience. If I remember correctly, it was maybe 5 tenants over 2.5 years. All of them nothing but positive, no problems at all. Okay. But no, I got in the condo game. I knew I could offset living expenses, and I just started. So again, I just want to make sure I understand the vision. So you got the condo. You knew you were going to have at least one buddy. Correct. Was that all, or did you fill it up? I don't know how many you had. Oh, sorry. It was a 2-bed, 2-bath condo. And so getting the friend was the other room. You were done. You were full. Yeah, correct. Yep. Okay. Got it. So then it sounds like at some point he left because you had 5 roommates in 2.5 years. How was it that first time getting somebody you really, or I'm guessing the second person you didn't know, maybe I'm wrong. Nerve-wracking because I hadn't done it before. Yeah. So let's talk about it. I mean, again, your fire ready aim. Let's get some people maybe at least not to just fire. Let's get them ready ready before they aim. If somebody's going to do this, they're 22, 23, man, woman, whatever. They have a place now or maybe in the future. What would you tell them about that nerve-wracking experience? Do's, don'ts, all of that. Sure. From a macro level perspective, I think this game is actually going to become even more valuable, even more lucrative. Personally, I bet Todd would think the same. If you were in my shoes and you saw the demand, you would understand how picky you get to be. So from the jump, as long as you're not living in some uber rural city, like if you're in a reasonably populated metropolitan area, I have a feeling you'll have options. So I say that because with options means you can select, you can be more selective.
So you can be more selective for your criteria. There are many different options where you can post your room for rent. I've had really good experiences on Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist. There's also Roomster is another one that's here in Las Vegas that where you can find people. And then I'm lucky because I get people hitting me up from Instagram that are fans of the channel. But also if you go to meetups in your town, or if you make it clear that you do this model, you'll find that people who know people moving to your city, or maybe someone needs a room for rent, they'll actually reach out to you because they know you as the rent by room guy. And so that's another path that I've experienced as well. I've gotten a significant amount of tenants through that method.
That's awesome. So one more question with you, and we'll go back to Todd after this. It sounded like 5 roommates in 2.5 years, that turnover might be higher than most people expect with roommates. Maybe they come in, learn the city, do this or that. Is that fair, or is that just that one time?
My experience is that it will be shorter. I do month to month. I don't bring people in for a year. I do month to month for various reasons. However, with the rent by room, at least in my experience, maybe Vegas is a little different because it is more transient. However, you are asking someone to live in a house with a lot of strangers. You're
Yes.
not getting someone that's like, oh, I'm going to be here for 3 years in this. I'm a doctor.
Yeah.
You're getting people that are going to be a little more transient and
Okay.
probably a little more short-term natured.
Mhm.
I have no problem with that. So yes, the turnover, I don't know what other people's expectation of turnover is. However, I think about half my tenants are probably 6 to 12 months, and then
Okay.
the other half are forever.
Okay. And then just last question, it popped in my head, and I have no idea. I'm assuming you do furnished, but I don't know.
I do, yes. I furnish the house first.
Okay. All right. That's cool. All right, Todd, you're up. Kind of same question. Let's go back to this. It's you and your girlfriend at 23. I think you said, and you buy a house. Did you already have your friend, her friend lined up? What was that first experience with that first roommate?
Yeah. So first, I will say strangers will make you rich. Your friends will not.
Because they want a deal, huh?
Or they just don't want to do it.
Okay.
We bought a 6-bedroom, 4-bathroom house, and every single
Wow.
roommate. So the other 5 roommates were all strangers, except for one that I sort of knew in college, and he ended up not being real great to live with. So it didn't
Go
last
figure.
very long. So most of them were strangers. And as Spencer talked about, Roomster, Roomie, RentHoop, Facebook Marketplace, Facebook groups, Craigslist. I actually have, Zuber, I can send you a link to it if you want later.
Sure.
I have my top 5 websites of where I source roommates. And actually, believe it or not, Facebook groups has been the best one for me. I don't know if it's been different for Spencer, but in your area, like let's say you live in Austin, Texas, there's going to be a Facebook group that says Austin, Texas rooms or apartments or sublets. And that's just a group. And so everybody in that group is looking for what you have to offer. So there's maybe about 5 of those groups here in Seattle. I post in all of them. So that's the first thing.
Okay.
As far as living with roommates, I'm not going to lie to you. There are some days that it totally sucks. But if you can zoom out and understand, well, you're living for free, your tenants are paying off the note, your house is going up in value, you're getting paid cash flow just by living for free. You can start to understand why, at least in the short term, for a couple of years, it's brilliant. And I know this won't be till next week, but now, I'm 30 now. I just turned 30 about a month ago, 2 months ago. And I no longer live with roommates, but I live in a duplex and I rent out the other half because I still see the value in living for free. There is a sunset of living with roommates. You're not going to do it forever. I've had some terrible roommates, but I've also, the rent that we were bringing in, I think was $40,000 a month or so. And after all the expenses, around 15 grand a month was pure cash flow. So if every once in a while I have to wash somebody else's dish, or I get in an argument with someone or whatever, right? Like I can zoom out and say, hey, look at the big picture. I'm making 15 grand a month net passive income just because I own a couple of houses.
Yeah. And
all the houses have increased in value year after year because we're in a crazy real estate market and I'm in a nice city for it. So, and that's where I go back to strangers will make you rich, right? Because all of my best tenants have been people I met on Craigslist or otherwise. I think my average stay is around 2.5 years.
Oh, really? So a little different. Okay.
A little different. It might just be Seattle, it, I think your market really depends on where you are. It might be more or less in New York. It might be more or less in California. I don't know. But my average tenant is about 2.5 years. And I think Spencer alluded to this. Oh, I see a question too that I'll answer. Legally evicting a roommate. I'll get to that in a second. Spencer alluded to this, that you're allowed to be a little bit pickier. And I don't know what the law is in your specific area, but in my area, when I'm looking for a tenant for my house hacking, I'm actually technically not looking for a tenant. I'm looking for a roommate. And so there are certain things that don't fall under the Fair Housing Act. Like, for example, let's say that instead of me being this big, strong macho man that I am, let's say that I'm a 22-year-old woman and I don't want to live with a 46-year-old dude. I can legally say that. If I own an apartment complex, of course I can't discriminate based on sex or gender, nor should I, by the way. But I can say, hey, I'm a young woman and I don't feel comfortable living with some 46-year-old dude who might try to look at me in the shower or whatever. And you can say that, and it's perfectly legal. Emotional support animals. If you own an apartment complex, at least in my area, if someone has an emotional support animal, not even a service dog, you cannot deny them for that. But in a roommate situation, you can say, hey, here's the deal. I'm allergic to cats. So although your emotional support animal is legally speaking not a pet, it's still a cat, which I am allergic to. And this isn't going to work. And most people are respectful of that when they understand it's a roommate situation. They don't want to be the odd man out. Mm-hmm. There was a question here about evictions. How do you evict a?
We'll get to those later.
Okay.
I will go through all the questions. Everybody.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah. And then the third question for Spencer, because I want to give equal time. I assume you furnish as well?
Furniture? Oh, yeah, I furnish everything, but I don't furnish the bedrooms. I just furnish all the common areas.
Okay, so they have to bring their own bed, dresser, whatever.
Yep, they bring all their bedroom stuff, and I furnish all the common areas. I buy all the dishes and silverware. Mm-hmm. I put a flat screen TV in all the living rooms. But yeah, they bring their own bedroom stuff.
My turnover might be higher then because of that, because I do furnish the rooms.
So you do the bedroom. I just wanted to clarify. So you put a bed, a dresser. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, very, very different. So next question I have, again, kind of setting this up. Spencer, we'll go to you again. You're on camera. How do you know how much to charge rent? I mean, how do you do that?
Through experience, thankfully. But if I was starting out, you can look at other listings and get an idea for what other people are charging. You can also put it up. You'll know right away. If you don't have within 2 or 3 days, if you don't have your inbox blown up, then you're probably overcharging. Yeah. I can't stress enough. I know what it's like to be a hot chick on Tinder. Like when I post the room for rent, it's like, dude, stop. It's like a fire hose. Like, dude, stop messaging me. I get so many messages. I think the best way would be to analyze other listings.
Okay. And the other thing I believe with your story is once you set a rate, somebody moves in, you don't raise it. If I remember,
I've never raised rent. I'm not a fan of that practice.
Do you raise rent between tenants? Like, hey, it was 400 for Joe, but Joe left, is the next person's 500, or it's just 400 or whatever?
No, I haven't done that.
All right. Todd, how about you? How do you know what to set rent? And then do you raise rents?
Yeah, so I kind of do a hybrid of what Spencer's doing. So in my area, it's an expensive market, even for studio apartments. Mm-hmm. It's okay, guy. And so what I try to do is my average room is half the rate of what a studio is. So for example,
okay.
if a studio apartment in Seattle is $1,800, well, then my average room is $900. Now that includes all utilities. It includes parking and internet. It includes a weekly house cleaner, all that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. Which of course a studio apartment doesn't include any of that. So I'm trying to make it like, you're going to save at least half on rent, and then you're going to get some perks too. The downside is you're going to have like 6 roommates, but if you're okay with that, then it's fine, and you can save a bunch of money. Now, most of my tenants, if they compare to what they would spend on even a studio, not even a 1-bedroom, but a studio, they save around $1,200 a month when they factor in the extra rent they would pay and utilities and parking. It's an average, so some people save more, some people save less, but that's an average for a studio. Now, raising rent. I never raise rent on an existing tenant.
Okay.
If you rent from me, I don't care if you live in my house for 6 months or 6 years, your rent will never increase. The only reason your rent might go up or down is if you decide to upgrade or downgrade rooms.
Okay.
Like if you're in a basic room, but instead you want to upgrade to the master bedroom, then there's a fee for that. Or if you're in the master and you're like, I really want to save money, but I want to keep renting from you. If there's a cheaper room available, you can downgrade to that and you can pay less money. However, I do raise the rent on turnovers. So if someone's been renting from me for $900 and they've been renting for me for 4 years, and now, the market rate for that room is $1,000, when they move out, I do raise it to 1,000. But as soon as that new person in, same deal. I will never, ever raise rent on an existing tenant. I think landlords have a really bad reputation, whether it's fair or unfair. We do. We're not very popular. People hate us. So I think it's just the right thing to do. People make this decision based on budgeting. As I think Spencer said it earlier on this show, housing is your biggest expense.
Yeah.
And so if that can be relatively controlled and you can make a decision based on that, and that a landlord's not going to jack up the rates, they're more likely to stay loyal to you and have good things to say. Especially, Spencer has a huge following on YouTube. The last thing he needs is a disgruntled tenant to blast him on Twitter and say, "Oh, this evil, greedy landlord's nickel and diming me for," it's just not worth it. And I think too, with house hacking specifically, because the cash flow is so much, I don't need to nickel and dime these guys for an extra $50 to $100 a month, right? Like, I'm making so much money from this, and everybody knows it too, because they'll pay me on Venmo, and you can see, anyone can come see that I have 40 people paying me every month, right? They don't see the number, but they see the amount of people, and it doesn't take a genius to figure it out. Right. So it behooves you to be a nice person and do the right thing. So that's my philosophy.
All right. So one last topic for me, folks. Again, remember, we're here to answer your questions, so get them loaded. We will go to you next. I actually had a comment on my channel. I wish I knew who left it. Apparently PBS, public broadcasting, somebody, whatever. They actually put out a video or a topic the other day about baby boomers potentially should be looking at house hacking. And we've come into this, both of you being young men, single, or actually you had girlfriend, Todd, at the time, house hacking. I want to just put it out there under the whole good karma that there's a lot of baby boomers who are living in these big houses, right? They didn't downsize. There's a lot of specifically single women, like my mom, for example, lives in a big old home by herself. My mom and dad are divorced years ago. But what I saw in this special is, one of the things that baby boomers might want to consider house hacking as well, and maybe it's called boom hacking or whatever you want to call it. Again, get people your age to live with you, because again, one of the things that really hurts later in life is living by yourself, not communicating, people to share experience with this. So I just really want to push the idea that house hacking doesn't have to skew only younger. Maybe there's a time in life when you're having kids like Bishop and all of this, where you just need to have your family unit. But you know what? If you're 61, 62, 63, living by yourself in a big ass home, and all you got is your kids' stuff in there because you're just too lazy to throw it away, maybe it makes sense to start house hacking at 61, 62, get some friends, get some more entertainment, life. You don't have to be in solitude. So what do you think about boomers, Todd, potentially looking at house hacking as a way to, add income, extend life, have more fun? What do you think about that crazy idea?
Yeah, as right now being 30 and not having roommates, I can't imagine going back to roommates when I'm 60. However, I know that the baby boomer generation, half of them have all the money and the other half have no money.
Right.
And so for the half that have no money, dude, yeah, get a roommate. Otherwise your social security benefits are just going to just go to your rent or whatever it is. And you're not going to have any money left over to travel and do whatever you want to after 40 years of working.
Yeah. Being alone, but also being just the quality of life gets better, being lonely.
Yes.
And I talk to my mom all the time, and I'm going to tell her she should go get roommates just to enjoy life more.
Companionship is huge. If you don't have a partner, or if you're an empty nester or don't have kids at all, I can see it be quite lonely. Yeah. And so having that companionship would be huge. And if the companionship can also help you offset your living expenses, then it's a win-win.
There you go. Spencer, what do you think about that crazy idea? I think it's not unheard of to think house hacking generally skews younger. What do you think about, somebody in their 60s potentially doing something like this?
I've had many tenants that are coming off divorce in their 40s.
Okay.
And they're smart enough to not be ashamed by living with others.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people in America are going to be forced to live with roommates. I hear in Vegas, it is so challenging for people to find a place to live that fits their budget.
Mhm.
And I feel a lot of empathy for those types of people, where I think a lot of people are going to be forced, no matter the age.
Okay.
And so even if it's older, that's why I want to be the one providing
Yeah.
the solution.
I love that. All right. So now we're going to start getting to your questions. The first one I saw, we had lots of congratulations and highs and all of that. Hopefully you guys saw those. The first question I see is from Chester. Thank you, Todd and Bishop and Spencer, for your time today. Vetting presumably is more for house hacking success. I take it basically talk about, I don't know if it's gut feel, like as a landlord, because I don't do roommates, I have a tenant criteria. I can't discriminate, all of that. We are talking roommate situation. As Todd mentioned earlier, Spencer, you're on camera. Just talk about how you've evolved your gut feeling or criteria for a yes versus no answer.
My philosophy is not aligned with many landlords, and I think a lot of people would very much disagree with the way I go about it. However, from a macro level, I've still not found one correlated variable with what happens, what is a good tenant. So I've seen someone mention like credit score. Don't check credit score. I've had great tenants who have felonies. That's why I don't even check background checks. All I look for, here's what I look for. Do you have a job? Do you have references that you can point to? References for a job and references for previous living experience. That's all I care about. And here's the downside. This is actually a good time to bring up the downside. So we could talk for ages about all the upside. Todd can talk for a while about how much money he's made and how successful he's been with this. So we can look at the upside, but I think it's key that we look at the downside.
Yes.
And the main downside with this, the one wrinkle in the system that there's no way to, or at least in my experience, there's been no way to 100% solve, is that when someone moves into your house, you do not know for sure how they're going to behave. Some people look clean, they move into your house and they're dirty, and that causes problems with another tenant. Maybe they're aggressive and they're confrontational, and that causes problems in the house. You don't know until someone moves in. So that is my philosophy with finding tenants, is that I think you really don't know until they move in. And so I'm a little bit more of I don't know how to really put it, but I throw darts at the dartboard and hope they stick.
So let me just push at that a little bit. Do you have to meet every tenant, or would you just say yes to somebody over email? Well,
oh, 100%. Oh, so I certainly have a vibe check too. Like when they show up, or they seem sketchy, or they asking something weird questions. But the key is, do they have a reference from a previous living experience? If they're shady about, oh, I was living with a friend and they just, they don't really have a for sure answer. Maybe they're getting kicked out, so you want to stay away. But if they're quick to give you a reference and you call their previous landlord, oh, this guy was great. I found that a lot of people were previously living with tenants anyway, so you can get a pretty good feel from the reference experience. But it's up to you. This is the challenge I'm saying is that
but you have to meet them. It's not just,
you have to, for sure.
Yeah. Do you ask them to, like, let's say you have a 6-bedroom, 5 are occupied, you're interviewing the 6th. Is it just you, or do you let one of the other tenants meet them as well to get a second check?
Just me.
Just you. It's your house.
Correct. Yeah. I don't trust my tenants to give a good feeler. Plus,
they're
not incentivized to have someone there, so they're always going to find a reason. Like, oh, his car was dirty. I had a friend one time whose car was dirty, and they were a terrible person. It's just it's irrelevant.
That's okay. I just wanted to make sure.
Yep.
And then as you're do you communicate kind of the rules of the road, what's acceptable, not acceptable, before they say yes, or before 100%. You say yes, I should say?
I have a house rules document that I present, and I make it very clear. I say these are the house rules. If you aren't interested in following them, then I would not like for you to move in. They're actually pretty simple, but I give them a chance to read through them. And I say, if there's any problem, please do not move in. But these are the house rules.
House rules. And again, it's a document that they see and you go through together kind of line by line, or
Yep.
Awesome.
Yep. Exactly.
Okay, cool. Todd, kind of back to you. When you're, do you have a vibe check, or how do you evaluate folks as they come to you?
Yeah. So first, I agree with Spencer completely. You don't know what you get until they move in. And the person who looks amazing on paper could be terrible.
Yeah.
And the person who maybe looks like a little sketch might end up being your best tenant. That being said, I do have criteria that I look for. Everybody has to pass a background check. I do have a minimum credit score, just because what a credit score basically is like, do you pay your debts, and do you pay on time? And I want to make sure that I'm going to be getting rent on time. However, my minimum credit score is quite low. I think it's like 620.
Oh,
so
yeah. It's pretty low.
If you don't have a 620, like there's probably something else going on that perhaps I don't want to be involved with, or I don't want to subject my other tenants to. The felony question, that's tough. I don't believe I've ever permitted a felony into one of the rent by the room houses. I have other properties that are by the unit that I do. When it's a roommate situation, it's just tough. Like I have, for example, I have a 6-bedroom house, and in that specific house, there happens to be 4 women in that house. There's no way I could let a man with like a rape charge in that house, right? I don't care if he's sorry. I don't care if he'll never do it again. The fact is, he did it, and there's 4 women in that house, and I'm not going to do that, right? I can't do that. So, you gotta check for those things. So I personally don't do the felonies in the rent by the room situation. I do have a minimum credit score. The only thing I don't do that I probably should do is check for references, just because people can lie. Like, if you ask me for a reference, I don't even have to know you, and I can be like, yeah, send me $50 and I'll tell them you're the greatest of all time. Right. So I don't necessarily trust what other people say. I do try to figure it out on my own vibes. Like Spencer, I do have a house rules page. They have to abide by all of them, and if they don't, it's grounds for eviction. And the last thing I try to do is match people based on personality. It's certainly not an exact science, but like, if I have a house where people like to stay up until 3 o'clock in the morning watching UFC, that's not going to be the best fit for someone who wants to go to bed at 9 p.m. because they wake up super early, for an early shift because they're a nurse or something. It's just not going to work out. So I do the best I can to match people by personality. That being said, if we have the time, I can tell you about the worst tenant I've ever had and how I had no idea.
Go for it.
Okay. So I had a guy move in, former military. So that's cool. Like, good reference, great credit, all that stuff. He opted to rent the master bedroom, which comes with his own bathroom. At one point, this man asked if his boyfriend could move in with him. And I said, totally fine with me. Just ask the roommates about the extra space in the kitchen that your boyfriend might be taking up. Because, another person in the house, that means more stuff in the fridge and the cabinets, all that stuff. Everyone was cool with it. So my tenant's boyfriend moved in. That same day, my existing tenant beat the living hell out of his boyfriend who just moved in. I had no idea that my tenant he had a problem with alcohol, and he got violent when he drank. That's something that will never, ever come up in a background check or anything like that. His background check was perfect. And he had his boyfriend move in, beat the hell out of him, ripped a TV from the wall. This dude was like bloodied and bruised. I had to go over there at midnight. I had to get them out of the house immediately, right? Like, all these things were terrible. And I would have never known, there was no way for me to know that was ever going to happen. A domestic violence case, because he looked great on paper, and he was nice and presentable and clean cut. I mean, he was freaking military. He had the military cut and everything. So you just never know. And sometimes even your spidey sense doesn't tingle hard enough, because I had no idea that this guy was going to do that.
Yeah. Well, Spencer, you talked about earlier about, the bad karma of
Todd, one question you can ask.
Oops, go ahead.
I was going to say, one question you can ask Todd is, what was your previous living experience, and what happened or something. Sometimes they'll sneak in, if you can read between the lines. And I'm not saying it would have solved that one problem, but I had a mistake once where someone was living with their girlfriend's sister or something, and, oh, she wants me out or something. Well, long story short, he became like a tenant that didn't pay, had a little issues, and I should have read between the lines, like, wait, you would have been homeless. Your girlfriend's sister would have let you been homeless. You were staying on her couch. That should have been like major red flags. So I think that's a good question to ask. If you can read between the lines, sometimes you'll get some intuition.
Yeah.
Awesome advice.
Yeah. So Spencer, let's cover the somebody tried to burn down my house example. I think you kind of preferenced earlier. That had to be a bad experience, I'm sure.
Yeah, it was a really sad story. A guy who had severe mental health issues. I brought him in because actually I need to start with saying that the house and the quality of neighborhood, quality of house will actually dictate your tenants as well. And so with this house, it is in a very undesirable location from some metrics. It's on a 6-lane road right on the main street here in Las Vegas. And so I can't be that picky with that house. It was 7 people under one roof. I'm getting people who are transient, people who don't have the greatest resume as far as roommates. And so I brought him in because he started working at the pizza shop like 2 doors down. And it was right as COVID was starting to ramp up. I didn't know if I was going to get a good tenant from, there was a lot of uneasiness when COVID was first hitting this country. And so I just brought him in because he started working next door. I figured it was perfect. Well, a year and a half later, he kind of started going wild mentally. And unfortunately, I got the call. I was not living at the house at this time, but yeah, I got the call that the house was on fire. And I'm like, oh, whoa, what? And I raced over there. Well, he lit something on fire and threw it inside the house and actually legitimately lit the house on fire.
Wow. So a couple of things I want to say about this, both domestic violence, fires, this can happen to a normal landlord as well. I've had both occur, unfortunately, several times. This is not house hacking specific. It's obviously more concentrated, more other people living are dealing with this. So more people certainly are involved, but both of those are not unique to house hacking, right? I've had 3 fires in my 22 years. I've had 1 severe water damage. It happens.
Part of the game. It's what you sign up for, right?
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. So we got a
Were
question.
those fires on purpose, Michael, or were they accident?
So one was arson. One was a barbecue that was too close to a tree, so accident. And one was a kid playing with a magnifying glass.
Wow.
So 2 accidents and 1 on purpose. So there's a lot of questions. And again, all 3 of us are, play YouTubers and influencers. We are not lawyers. So please learn your area rules. There are cities and townships or whatever you want to call it, probably have rules about number of strangers and things of that nature under one roof. We have a question from Larry around really insurance, I think. So maybe this is a good question, kind of, do you have different insurance policies with roommates versus traditional landlord policies? It looks like Geico only does 2 strangers under one roof. You have to upgrade to get 4. So Todd, since you're on camera, what about insurance and house hacking?
Yeah, so I don't know who knows this, but I actually come from an insurance background. So I was in corporate insurance for years. It's actually what allowed me to buy a lot of real estate. All of my properties are with Nationwide Private Client. So if you guys go to Nationwide, there is a subsect of private client. When I got in, it's their high net worth division. I don't know what the criteria would look like for someone who wants to get in there now. I think when I got in, the house had to be at least worth 500,000. But anyway, they cover the whole deal. So like a normal homeowner's policy, a normal rental policy, they don't care if you have roommates, they don't care if you're strangers, right? And it was perfect. And the rates are very, very low. Mm-hmm. What they look for is credit score is a really big deal to them. So if you're going to have this awesome, uber nice policy, they want to make sure you're qualified. And so you have to have a good credit. I think you have to have a credit score of at least 720 to get in. But yeah, check out Nationwide Private Clients. By the way, I don't work for them, so this isn't like a plug or anything. It's just who I happen to use, and I really like their service. So it's been great, and I've had no problems with them.
You just call them up, add a property, move property.
Yeah, so that's another thing. So Nationwide, the way insurance work is there's some places that are captive, meaning that they will only show you their program. So like Geico, for example, is captive. So if you talk to a Geico agent, they're only going to show you Geico policies. I always work with a broker. I used to be a broker for insurance, and brokers can show you policies from many different companies and then compare them. So when I took these rental by the room houses to my broker, they compared a lot of different policies. And the one they came back to over and over again was Nationwide Private Client. Okay. So, it was signed off on by my broker who I trust. For me, coming from insurance, understanding the game, I thought they had a great program, and it was exactly what I needed.
Okay. Spencer, how do you handle insurance?
I enjoy talking about this because that was always the biggest fear with my 7-bed. There was also an allusion to a rule about how many roommates. I've never worried about the county rule. There is like a certain amount of adults under one roof. I would say don't let this be a stopping point. I don't think anyone really cares. I'll tell you why. I've had cops to my 7-bed house. I've had cops 5+ times to that house. I've also had the incident with the fire. So I dealt with insurance and got a payout. So they knew how many people were living under one roof. And at no point did anyone stop and go, wait a second, wait, you're doing what? This isn't according to code. So I've literally dealt with every type of wrinkle in that argument. And there's been no issue. So I would not let that be a stopping point.
Okay.
As far as insurance goes, I still got paid out with an incident.
Mhm.
I use farmer's insurance. The one thing with insurance that you need to keep in mind as you go from 1 to 2, let's say you're a primary residence house hacker, and then you move to your second and you do a rent by room in the previous house, you do need to change it into a rental policy as opposed to a homeowner's.
Okay. So
And I
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, I would highly recommend doing maxing too. Like I know your cash flow will be less, but I'd highly recommend maxing your insurance. Go with the highest paid option.
Well, certainly if you're going to
Worth it.
house hack, go
Yes.
go maximum, right? If you're
Yeah, it's
if
worth
you're
it.
you're getting that extra cash flow, protect yourself.
Yes.
Okay. So again, if you're in the house, it's just normal home ownership. I didn't know that. I've never house hacked. And then yeah, once you move, it's just a regular landlord policy.
Correct. Yeah, rental policy. There's some slight differences with
But you have
what
to-
is covered.
Do you tell your farmer's agent, hey, this is a house hack, could be 5 roommates, non-family? Do you have to tell them that?
It was so lucrative. He said, "Wait, what? Let me do that." He bought a house. He's like, "Oh, I bought a 5-bed, and we were able to convert it to a 7-bed, and it was full within 3 days." I'm like, "Yeah, I've been telling you for a
Yeah,
year."
it kind of really works, huh?
He's like, "Dude, I'm cash flowing like crazy." I'm like, "Yeah."
It really works. So I actually want to branch off and take another question of mine. So Spencer, you talked about this 6 or 7 bed on a 6-lane highway. If you had to do this over again, like when you're looking to evaluate a house hack purchase, has your criteria, like, would you not buy that house today because, hey, that's just too much headache? For a little bit more money, I could get something off the busy road.
Certainly. Yeah. It's hard to look back because I was able to do a lease purchase. So my situation like had all these other wrinkles, but yes, looking back, I would have bought in a better neighborhood and I wouldn't have gone to the extreme with the 7-bed. I think a nicer house does bring better tenants, and it certainly makes the process of finding tenants easier and more enjoyable.
Yeah. So again, I think that's important. Again, a lot of folks, when you're looking at house hacking or renting, I talk about a buy box and area and things of that nature. We need to realize if it's house hacking, it's going to be important location and criteria. Todd, when you're evaluating purchases, do you look at the property type and all of that?
Yeah, so I'm very specific with the criteria that I look for. I only ever, when it's an investment property, I only ever buy in an undervalued area that's going through a transition. So I basically, I'm never brave enough to get into an area before gentrification, but if it's happening, I ride that wave for sure. And then I also make sure, if there's 8 people living in a house, there's got to be 8 parking spots. I don't buy anything with an HOA because the HOA could tell me I can't rent it. In the city that I live in, they don't have any limits on the number of roommates. So actually, I take that back. The city that I invest in, the limit of number of roommates you have is 2 people per bedroom plus 1. So for example, in a 6-bedroom house, you can have 2 people per bedroom for a total of 12 plus 1 for a total of 13.
Wow.
Before the county or city gives you any grief about it. I've never had that many people in one house. I don't do 2 to a bedroom unless it's a master bedroom with its own bathroom. I look for properties that are on a bus line or at least close to public transportation because not everybody has a car. So yeah, being very picky about like this duplex that I live in, by the way, I know you can't really tell because I'm just in one room with a blank wall, but it took me 10 months to find this place. I looked at properties every single day for 10 months before I found this spot. And, it just, if you're patient and you find the right deal, then it's going to be really, really lucrative for you. This duplex might be one of the best deals I've ever bought. And you just have to be patient. And you have to be, I would say you have to be picky because this is a business, like you wouldn't just, if you were going to buy a McDonald's franchise, you'd make sure it was everything you thought it was. And you put it in an area where the people are going to come and do business with you and you're going to have a lot of customers and all those things. So, real estate's expensive. And I think real estate is, I think, Michael, you say this a lot. It's not the get rich quick business. It's a get rich for sure business, which is true. But if you do it wrong, you're going to lose all your money.
Yeah.
so, and not, I don't want to be dramatic, it's not like crypto where you can actually lose all of your money. But with real estate, the transactions are so big that, if you do it wrong, you can easily be out tens of thousands of dollars, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. So do your research and do it right.
Yeah. So Spencer, I want to go back to you for a moment. You talked about your first one being a condo, 2-bed, 2-bath, if I remember. And now we're talking 5s and 7 bedrooms. I'm guessing you look at more bedrooms because bedrooms equal income in house hacking, right? As you look at this, are you only looking at 4 and 5 bedroom and above? Is that kind of just makes the best return, I'm guessing?
I'm fortunate to be able to afford that position in the marketplace. For me, that's Vegas is 500,000 and up, in the Southwest, 5+ bedrooms. That is ideal because it's a better house. I think they're better built, they're newer built. I don't care about the cash flow because I'm thankful that my YouTube career is able to bring the dough in, that I'm able to pay my bills. So house hacking to me was just simply cover bills and own real estate for the long haul. I'm actually not, I don't know if I'm going to stick with rent by room, by the way.
Okay, well, let's talk about that.
Sure. I don't know if real estate's a great time to buy in Las Vegas right now. Single family.
I would agree with that. I've actually had Brian Lebo, who I'm sure you know.
Listened.
Yeah, he and I have talked a couple of times. I think certainly, and actually, it's funny you bring that up because I actually think Vegas is different than Phoenix. Just for fun, a little tangent here. I think Phoenix inventory is stacking below the median because of open door and things of that, and I think Vegas is stacking above the median. So I think that market, I think it's about to get very dicey. Yeah.
It could, yeah. And also I'm thankful that YouTube needs to be my focus. And a downside of house hacking is it does take a little more energy. I don't have a manager. I am my manager.
Yeah. So the other thing you and I've talked about, I interviewed you solo one time. You were actually thinking about, I don't know if it was a JV or partnership with someone, but actually creating a property management company focused on house hacking. And I told you that would be wildly successful. Have you moved on that?
I have a friend that's managing my Airbnb. We haven't really seriously considered it. It would make for a good option. Yeah, it's tricky. We all kind of adapt and go down our own path. I've just been so busy with YouTube that I don't put any energy or thought into it. But I'm with you. I would love to rent by the room in Las Vegas because I think this is going to be so lucrative. Maybe it's not a great time to buy if you're looking at cash flow numbers, but I'm saying simply from a fill the house, you're going to cash flow something. I think over the next 10 years, I think Las Vegas is still going to explode.
No, I agree. I think Vegas, you just went through a time where you overbuilt in a certain segment and it's just time to pay up. And then, you buy some assets cheap because you're going to find a lot of motivated sellers in a year or two. And I bet you scoop up some good buys. Todd, how about you in Seattle? Are you only buying 4 and 5 bedrooms or what are you doing up there?
Yeah. So I think my smallest house is 6 bedrooms.
6 bedrooms.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Now, just be clear. When you guys say 6 bedrooms, does that include a garage conversion? Because I don't see a lot of 6 bedrooms listed on the MLS.
No, what it probably is someone was going to do like a 4-bedroom house plus a den plus a bonus room.
Okay.
But I still have, 3-car garages in most of my properties. Maybe some of them only have a 2-car garage, but no. So I have 6 rentable rooms.
Wow.
That don't include the garage. In my duplex, this place had 6 rooms, and I actually did convert a garage into a studio apartment, and I put that on Airbnb. Mm-hmm. But no, yeah, the more rooms, the more cash flow. Of course, at some point, like, if you have a 15-bedroom house, that's probably a bit extra.
Yeah, just a bit extra.
Yeah,
the layout matters too.
One roof makes it complicated, but what I have found, and maybe it's different now because the real estate market's insane, and I haven't bought real estate since 2019, but I'm always looking to buy. When I could buy a 6-bedroom house for, let's say, I might have to take this guy down in a second. When I could buy a 6-bedroom house for like, 500,000, well, a 3-bedroom house was like, 389.
Right.
So it wasn't that much less expensive, right? So like, let's say there's like $120,000 difference, something like that. But with 2 extra bedrooms, I'm going to be having an extra $2,000 a month in cash flow.
Right.
And so it doesn't take much, it doesn't take that long to recoup that $120,000 delta.
Yeah.
Plus I have it, every year after that, I'm just making the cash flow. So
yeah,
I mean, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about, I'm incredibly lucky and blessed that my income is high enough to buy properties that are big. Mm-hmm. I still I'm like, can't even believe I just made over 700 grand in a day. Like, that's just stupid. Yeah. So I'm super, I'm not so arrogant to say that I didn't get lucky here, which has allowed me to buy properties that are, again, my smallest one is 6 bedrooms. My biggest one, I believe, is 8 bedrooms. Wow. And that's just a killer one right by the airport. It's awesome. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I just think for me, the sweet spot's probably 6 bedrooms, but
Okay.
if I can get more, then I will. But like Spencer though, this is not something that I'm going to do forever, by the way. You know, renting out houses by the rooms, I saw it as a way to make a ton of money in a really short period of time. Specifically with room rentals. If it's just like traditional real estate, that's not the case. But I've had traditional rentals, I've had Airbnbs, I've had house hacks, you know, all those things. And you know, I'm not going to be running over at midnight to unclog a toilet, you know, much past tomorrow over it. But it was a great way. Like, again, you know, it may sound hypocritical if it feels like I'm exiting or whatever. But again, I would be nowhere near where I am today if I didn't start house hacking. And I don't have the social media following that Spencer or Michael have. But I'm busy with other things. Like I have a couple of television shows that I'm going on next year. And one of them I'm going to be gone filming in Los Angeles for 3 months. And I just don't have time to find roommates and stuff. So I have sold a few of my properties, but again though, nothing in my life would be the way it is had I not started the real estate stuff. Not even the television shows. Like I got on TV because I'm a house hacker. Like that, as crazy as that sounds, like that's how I got noticed and picked up. So
that's funny.
Everything is because of this.
Okay, very cool. Spencer, I'm going to take this question to you. Basically, Todd gave us a great formula. I want to see what you feel about this. There's a question about, hey, I want to try house hacking in Alaska, rural Alaska, it says. What do you think about that whole idea of figuring out what a studio rents for and cutting it in half? How did that feel when you heard that?
That was interesting. I just put rooms up for rent and see how the response is.
You check 3 days later and either you're flooded like Tinder or you're not.
Yeah, you can start low. There's nothing wrong with look, if someone moves in and they feel like they're getting a deal, they're probably going to be a better tenant. And I would argue that a lower rent with a better tenant, a better behaved tenant, is worth more. So
every time.
Don't be afraid to start low. And please don't look at it like, oh, I could be getting 600 and I'm getting 525. It's irrelevant in the long term.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. So here's one we haven't asked about: cleaning. How do you handle cleaning common kitchens, bathrooms, other areas? What I would ask you is, do you have external cleaning? You hold that on the tenants? How do you, Spencer, since you're on camera, how do you handle cleaning of those areas?
I include cleaning once a month.
Only once a month? Oh, I would.
In my other house, I do twice a month. And the reason why I do twice is I actually don't trust those tenants to clean as much. And so the cleaning fee is actually more, it's a nice perk. It's like, oh, hey, we got cleaners. It's actually more for me to know that the bathrooms will stay clean.
Yeah, that's what I would have. Again, I never done house hacking. I would have guessed the standard was twice a month. So, all right. Well, what about the kitchen? Like, again, just nightly dishes. Is that in the rules that you have? Hey, you got a few dirty dishes, you got to wash them before you go to bed or whatever?
Yes. Yeah, that's in the rules. However, every now and then you're going to run into someone who leaves dishes. And sometimes you just have to talk with someone like, hey, are you an adult? Yes. Yeah. Okay. Adults clean up after themselves. Please do this.
Yeah. Or get paper plates and just throw them away. Your choice.
Right.
That's funny. How about you, Todd? How do you handle cleaning? Is it once a month, twice a month? I'm just curious.
I actually have a maid come through once a week.
Once a week?
Mm-hmm.
Todd for the win.
Yeah. So she comes through once a week. She cleans all.
It's in the fee or whatever. You don't charge separate.
No, I don't charge separate. You know, so my, you know, it's quite possible that like my rooms are more expensive than my competition because I'm building in, you know, all of the utilities. Every house has like a house Netflix account and a house Hulu account, stuff like that. And I have a maid go through, clean every property on a weekly basis from top to bottom.
Wow.
Scrubs all the toilets. She cleans the bedrooms. She vacuums and dusts the bedrooms. You know, so she does a great job. She gives me a report every week and she says like, you know, hey, so-and-so is breeding cockroaches or
yeah, whatever. Right. Yeah.
Right. That hasn't happened yet. Thank goodness.
Yeah, thank goodness. Knock on wood.
Yeah. You know, remember when this started when I bought one house
right.
With my girlfriend. And then we had a bunch of strangers moving with us. So selfishly, I was like, we got to get a maid. I want a maid. And we had her started coming once a week. And it just worked so well. I was like, I'm going to replicate that for every house. Mm-hmm. Now, I would suggest you do not go through a Molly maids or whatever they're called, Mary maids. As an example, one of my houses, I think if Mary maids were to come do it, they would charge $480 to clean. My maid does that same house for $80 flat, and she does every house for $80. So I have these big, one of my properties is 3,200 square feet,
Hmm.
and she cleans it for $80.
I hoping you're giving her a tip.
Oh, I bonus her out hard.
There
Yeah.
you go.
Yeah, she's great. And by the way, she set the rates. Like
Yeah.
if I put out the number, I would have put out a much bigger number. But
Yeah.
I just posted an ad on Craigslist about, looking for a maid basically. And I asked what the rates are.
Mhm.
She came in and looked at the houses and she was like, yeah, I can clean for $80. And I was like, done. You want to do 6 of them?
Yeah. You want 5 more? Yeah.
Yeah. And for her, it's good because I don't know if anyone knows anything about the cleaning business. When you're like an independent contractor, housekeeper, you get stiffed a lot by clients. You have clients that don't pay you,
Yeah.
or you have clients that only want you, once every 3 months, or they cancel on you. And at least she knows every single week she's going to get $80 times 6 houses every week consistently in cash. So for her, it's like a steady income.
Nice. Here's a question that I often thought about. We've talked about 6 bedrooms and, all of this. I'm going to guess it doesn't matter to you, but I want to ask, would you prefer bedrooms to equal bathroom counts, like 4 and 4, 6 and that's a preference?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
life is
possible.
way easier. The more bathrooms, the better. My dream, I wasn't able to do it, but there's a house style right down the street from me here in Las Vegas. They get up to about 6 beds and 5 baths, and that's like the dream house because it's massive, 4,000 square feet. The number one, it's easier to find tenants whenever they can have their own bathroom.
Okay.
Most people are fine living with roommates if they can have their own bathroom.
Yep.
And you can charge more.
Okay. I like that. Would you actually go to the extent of adding a bathroom? Because it sounds like you've added rooms, right? Dens and all of that become bedrooms. Have you ever added a bathroom, Spencer?
I have not.
Yeah.
I wish I could though.
You wish you could. How about you, Todd? Have you ever added a bathroom?
No, so I buy all of my properties brand new construction.
Okay.
And I just buy stuff that's in my criteria. So I agree with Spencer. If you could have a bathroom for every single bedroom, that would be the best. Yeah, I mean, there's no question that would be the best. I actually might be building a house for just like my family. And we're looking at probably doing 6 bedrooms, 6 bathrooms, even in our own personal house. Just because it's so like if you have out of town guests or whatever, like it's just so much easier. And the more bathrooms, the better. I agree with Spencer completely.
Got another question from Lori. I think we hit this with Spencer. Spencer, you do month to month all the time. I forget, Todd, do you sign a year lease or you just do month to month from the jump?
So I don't do month to month. I stagger my leases. So for let's say I have a 6 bedroom house, I'll put 2 of the rooms on a 6-month lease.
Oh, okay.
I'll put the next 2 rooms on a 9-month lease. And I'll put the last 2 rooms on a 12-month lease. And then I'll renew everybody for 12 months. But what I do is when I stagger the leases, I'm only ever worried about filling 2 rooms at a time. Because if everyone is on a 12-month lease and they all want to move out, well, then I have to find 6 new people. And so I do the best. Now, it doesn't, sometimes a great tenant wants to be like, hey, I want to live here for exactly 8 months because then I'm going to go to college or whatever. It's like, okay, fine. So I'm not completely rigid on that, but I do the best I can to stagger the leases. The only reason I don't do month to month is it's certainly easier to get rid of people that way, like for sure. And I've had to get rid of some people. But predicting the cash flow is just a very important thing to me. The appreciation has been amazing, but I don't like to count on appreciation. In Seattle, I've had, again, like it's completely luck that just Seattle just blew up in the last, 5-7 years or so. But I invest for cash flow. And so I want to understand what that cash flow looks like every month. And so that's why I have people who sign leases.
Okay. So Spencer, we'll go back to you real quick. This question's really, so again, you furnish your units. Do you think that gets you a premium versus in Todd's case where, hey, you got to bring in your own bedroom stuff? Do you charge a premium or it just doesn't
I'm
matter?
very selfish. I do the month to month for me. That way, if I have a problem with you in Las Vegas, I can just do terminate lease, done. Same thing with the furnishing. I really dislike the process of like moving someone in and furniture and going up the stairs and you hear it hit
breaking
your
stuff.
walls
Yeah.
and stuff.
Yeah.
I much prefer it. It's just, it is furnished. Very few offer furnished. So I have a certain
like
segment
that.
of the market that no one offers anything, like a very affordable and furnished. And so for me, that's why it's so easy to find people, because there's so many people, young people that might have a TV, but they don't have a bed, nor do they want to move with a bed. And so I fulfill that need.
That's good. So let's talk about the dreaded evictions. Actually, I don't even know. Is a roommate situation still called an eviction or is it something else? Terminate lease. Let's talk about, I'm sure you've gone through an eviction. What's it like? Spencer, you're on camera.
My first one was a Todd, similar to you. I had a tenant that was in a relationship, and that relationship was very abusive.
Oh,
And I found out, and I had to evict her, the girlfriend, because he was bringing her onto the property at night. They knew my schedule. She would come sneak through the back door at 11 p.m. and then they'd be quiet in the morning when I'd leave, and I didn't know she was there. So I had to evict his girlfriend.
okay.
Yeah, that was fun.
So again, I want to be clear. So house hacking eviction is if I were going to rent a 1-bedroom house or apartment, it's the same deal in Vegas anyway.
Yes, I haven't really had to deal with the whole eviction process. There is an element of shame, I think, where you can go to someone and just say, "Hey, look, this isn't working out. Can you move out next month?" kind of thing. Or if they're not paying, like they'll work it out with you. But no one wants to have the eviction paper on their
On the door,
front
right?
door as everyone, and then everyone's like, "Hey, who's getting evicted?" Like, that I haven't had to deal with that. Most people are pretty easy where you just say, and by the
Yeah.
way, it's not like last minute, like, "Oh, hey, I don't want you here." Obviously,
Right.
there's been problems for a little bit. You've been
Okay.
in communication. Hey, this isn't working out. I'll help you find a new place, or I think it's best that you move out next month,
Yeah,
kind of
this
thing.
is
And
your
you
last
work
month.
with them. Yeah.
Yeah. Now,
No one wants the eviction because you can always leverage that over their head as well.
when somebody moves in, do you get first month and a deposit, or you just what do you get, Spencer?
I'm very unique in this. I don't charge anything, just the month to month.
You don't even collect of upfront month. You
I
gotta
hate
collect
having
it.
extra money and I hate paying people back. I don't like that on my mental.
Okay, all right.
So
I'm gonna guess
most
Todd
of
is
it's
completely
selfishly.
reverse.
Yeah.
I'm gonna guess Todd's the opposite. You get first month and a deposit for roommates.
I
Todd?
do, yeah.
Yeah. Is it just deposits same as rent, kind of 1-to-1 ratio?
No,
Oh.
my deposit's not as big. So I have a deposit of $500.
Okay.
It's broken down into $350 of that is a refundable security deposit,
Mhm.
and $150 is a non-refundable cleaning fee.
Okay.
And but I do get first month's rent for sure before they move in.
Awesome. And then actually, I think Spencer brought up a good point, especially if you're in 2-story homes, which I'm guessing a lot of yours are, Todd. That whole moving in and out of furniture, bed frames and dressers and stuff like that, that's got to be a hassle.
I don't want to deal with it.
Yeah, exactly. Not me. How about you, Todd? Yeah.
It's just part of the business, though. I mean,
Okay.
I didn't. So I have Airbnbs that I furnish.
Mm-hmm.
But what I found is a lot of my tenants have their own bed that they want to bring.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't want to tell them they can't bring it. Oftentimes I would help them move in and make sure the walls didn't get dinged up. But at the end of the day, it's like,
Okay.
there's going to be normal wear and tear on the house anyway.
I think it's really interesting. I think that's a choice for an operator, because I can definitely, again, right, thought about this for 15 seconds. I'm kind of Spencer's right. I'm like, I hate moving shit. I'm going to set it up once, like it or not. Buy your own sheets, but
Not many people offer it. So you're offering something that isn't really fulfilled in the marketplace. And by the way, let me mention that with in regards to the not taking security deposit, my 7-bed house is dealing with people who are very tight financially. They simply don't have it.
Right.
So you can either choose for them to move in, or you can just not have anyone move in.
No, and that's the one, just so we're clear on which property it is. That's the one on the 6-lane road.
Yeah. People are moving in there because they're very tight on money.
Understood.
Yeah.
Here's a question from Abdul. I think I know this answer, but basically, hey, I'm thinking about buying a 4-bedroom house. Should I live in it or not? I want to do rent by room. I think that's a lending question, Spencer. But when you get that question, is it better to rent out the rooms and live there, or just
If you're interested in house hacking, I would highly recommend living in your first house. There's you don't really understand what goes on and how to manage it, in my opinion, without ever living in one of these on your own. Because some of these, it'll blow your mind. It's like someone's texting you about so-and-so's not cleaning up after themselves, and it will throw you off. But if you've lived there, you probably have a better idea of how to communicate. So I would recommend living in one first. However, if you choose that you would like to rent by the room on a rental property, by all means, do it.
Yeah. A couple of things here. Fern, first, I think you're absolutely right. You got to gain experience. There's nothing like doing it yourself. Both of you have talked about you have house rules. I don't think you really generate your house rules until you've experienced it. And let's not forget, mortgage fraud is not good. So if you're going to tell your mortgage lender that you're going to live there and you get a 3.5% loan and then you don't live there, that's mortgage fraud. So I don't like that. That's a bad deal. Todd, what do you think about living in your first house hack being kind of the price of admission before you do it just open?
I would absolutely live in it, and I would wait. Well, I didn't do this, but looking back, if you can buy a new primary residence every year,
exactly,
that's what it takes. 12 months, and you can get a new primary residence
Yeah.
with, you don't have to put 20% down, and your interest rate is a full percentage point lower.
Yeah.
Now, as Michael said, if you buy a house as a primary residence, you get 3.5% down, you have a cheap interest rate. The rule is you have to intend to live there for 12 months. Intend is hard to prove, because if I intend to live in Seattle for 12 months at a house I just bought, I could 100% intend to live there. But then what if I get a job in Florida and I have to move? Well, is that mortgage fraud? I'm not a lawyer.
No,
so
let's be very, very clear. I mean, yeah, intent is hard to prove, but again, the question was, hey, I want to do this or that. You're not moving, doing
Yeah.
these external mortgage fraud is not worth it. I'm not promoting mortgage fraud on this channel. Don't do it.
certainly.
Have your own intent. Know what you're going to do. Don't cheat. House hacking, you don't need to cheat. There's already
No.
plenty of profit there. Don't cheat.
So much profit, and it makes sense. Living there will get you the experience, and you can move every 12 months and be completely safe. That's what we did.
Yeah.
I moved every 12 months.
Yeah.
And that, I was able to put 3.5% down, 5% down. I think on this duplex, I had to put 10% down because it was a little bit more expensive.
Mhm.
My interest rates were low. It just worked. It made sense.
Yeah. So Spencer, I think you're both the same here. You just charge one fee. You don't hit him for a fee and then do cable and internet and cleaning. You're like, no, your number's 400. You dish out all the expenses, I'm assuming.
50 a month across the board, no matter the property.
For what?
It's easy.
For
50 a month is high-speed internet. It's unlimited internet, cleaning fee, furnished.
so you do have, hey, the room is 400 and then $50 to live here or whatever.
Correct.
Okay. Oh, all right, cool. Todd, same way.
No, I just have a flat rate for the room.
Okay.
So perhaps, maybe what it is my rooms are more expensive, so it covers it anyway. But I just have it as like, hey, the room's $1,000 and it includes everything.
Mm-hmm. All right. So people have asked to double click into tenant screening, because again, this is where people get nervous. I think both of you know this when you talk to people. Let's double click into screening. We'll go back to Spencer, because it seems like you're definitely more of a gut feel. What are the red flags? Let's talk about that. You're an automatic no from Spencer.
Job history is one.
Tell me that. What do you mean?
They don't have some type of stability or no clear-cut income. Also, another thing with the background checks, I love tenants that have some type of employment with a legitimate operation, because they've already done a background check on them. And if they've been there for 6 months, yeah, sure, they can obviously move in and be terrible. But if they've maintained employment at a place where they did a background check and they've been employed for 6 to 12 months, they're probably all right.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
there's a gut feeling, like when you walk in, how do they communicate? There's no real way to word this or to put it on paper. Like when you walk up, do they shake your hand? Do they look you in the eye? Do they ask questions? Right? Do they seem shady?
Mhm.
I'll tell you, I had one couple that came and they were probably all right, but my intuition, I just started feeling weird at one point, and the guy had yellow teeth,
okay.
and the girl was way more attractive than he was, which I know this might sound weird or throw people off, but it was really odd. Like, why would this girl who looks way better, like physically, she looked cleaner than he was, and he had yellow teeth, which is usually a sign of drug use. And I was just, the car looked, I was just like, I felt odd. And that could have been totally wrong intuition, but there might have been some drug use there. And they both gave off some vibes of possible drug use. And
Yeah,
that's my intuition. And
the whole little, like they twitch almost sometimes.
Yeah, I don't know, whatever it was, whatever deep down in my subconscious felt like, I think I would be better off going with someone else. And so how do you put that on paper? I don't know. I think you do gain a certain vibe check over time.
But this is why you have to meet tenants.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Sit
How
there and
long-
talk to them.
How long is that first meeting? 15, 20 minutes, half hour?
30 minutes.
Okay. Yeah, it's more than just a handshake. How you doing?
Absolutely.
a
Yeah, absolutely. I ask good questions. Like I say, hey, here's what it's like to live here. Are you comfortable living with this many people? And here's some of the downsides of living here. I want to make it clear. Like at times there might be a smoke detector might go off because someone's using the oven, right? Do you want to move into this house?
So you paint I don't know, I'm going to say paint the downside. Maybe that's not the right word, but you want to make it very clear what they're stepping into. And
Of course, life is about expectations, right? If someone comes in and you paint a rose, it's like living on a bed of roses here, and then something goes wrong in the first week, they might be upset. But if they move in expecting X, Y, and Z to happen, and it happens, it won't throw them off.
Here's the question I didn't even think about. What type of doors or locks do you guys use? Do you use CCTV or security systems inside or outside the properties, Spencer?
I use Vivint. I have front door cam. I have cameras around the house. I like Vivint because they also have a unit inside the house that's easy to use. I have a phone app that I can check.
Okay.
I appreciate their service. I don't do anything on the interior doors. One problem I have not had yet, I've never had anyone, no matter on the spectrum of piece of shit, I've never had someone on the lowest end ever go into someone's room. I've
Really?
never dealt with that. I've never
Okay.
dealt with that. And
Knock
so,
on wood.
yeah, I've never had to deal with the interior. It's something about all the tenants, even the worst of them, they've always had the respect to not go in someone else's room. However, with the front door, always, always, always use keyless. 100% always use keyless. Do not deal with keys.
Yeah.
Tenants will lose keys.
Absolutely. How about you, Todd? Do you use cameras and security doors and locks and all that?
I have a Ring camera, so this is the one where you just ring the doorbell and there's a camera there. At one of the properties, there was a problem with a car getting stolen. It was very strange. It was always the same car that kept getting stolen. So we put a camera out there, and what we found out was it was the tenant's boyfriend who was stealing the car. So that was a whole deal. So that, that resolved itself when we figured that out. But I echo Spencer 100%. Keyless entries. I have those on all of my Airbnbs. Tenants will lose their keys.
Yeah.
I had locks on the doors at first in some of my houses, and tenants would lock themselves out of their bedrooms all the time and call me at like 2 o'clock in the morning because they're locked out of their bedroom. And I was like, okay, unless it's an extreme scenario, I'm not going to even allow locks on the doors anymore, because you guys, you mess up and
you suck.
Yeah, you suck. I couldn't even believe it. Like, I've never locked myself out of any place. I couldn't believe how often it happens with people.
Yeah.
So yeah, keyless entries would be awesome.
How do you deal with when things break, when it's clear which tenant broke it? I'm assuming you bill them, Todd, but I don't know, like a sink or something the question has.
Yeah, that's tough, because, if they deny it, like, what do you do? Because it's not like they're the only one that lives there.
Mm-hmm.
It could have been a guest of a guest, right? Who comes over and breaks it. There was one scenario where I had a woman who was renting for me. Awesome tenant, by the way, incredible. She was a nurse. She was paying me like $1,200 a month for a master bedroom, and she broke the garage door. Like, she just didn't open it, or she went out before it was all the way open, and she broke it.
Yeah.
And
that's kind of obvious who did that.
Yes, exactly. And she owned up to it. I was like, okay, so, let's talk about this. And she was like, oh yeah, I know that this is partially my fault.
Partially.
And I was like, right. And I was like,
partially.
okay, so, yes, because she hit the garage door. And I was like, well, who else is at fault?
Yeah.
And of course she couldn't answer.
Yeah.
Now the bill came out and it was $200. And I said, okay, so here's the garage door. Here's the bill. What do you think is fair? And she was like, well, I did hit it. Like, I basically, when I challenged her and I said, who else falls in it, she owned up to it completely. Like, there's nobody else is at fault here. And then what I did was I was like, I agree, but you're a really good tenant. So this time we're going to let it slide. And she has been a loyal tenant of mine for 5 years after that. And she has referred me about 10 other people who have been great, who have also rented from me. So it was a scenario where I was like, this tenant is perfect, except for this incident where they bumped the garage door.
Yeah, which
they never cause drama. They never do anything. They pay on time and in full. And I bet you they're going to rent from me for a really long time if I treat them with some grace. And that was exactly what happened.
And just so you know, that's the same thing being a landlord renting unit. Sometimes stuff happens and people own up to it. I have done the same thing many times, and it often works out to your behavior. So how about you, Spencer? When somebody breaks something, do you bill them? Have you had to deal with this? Do you have somebody break a garage door?
My philosophy is I think the landlord should cover everything. Personally, I feel like I'm making enough money and they have to go through enough stress that I don't mind covering everything. That's just my philosophy on how I manage my business. I had a dishwasher go out and everyone knew who it was. He even admitted that it was him. Cost $700. I covered it. This is also from my experience of, like Todd, $150 fix. Hey man, it was you. Oh yeah, I'll pay you or something, and never gets paid. So what's your mental energy worth?
Yeah.
I get it done right away. Okay, there's a problem. I literally solve it right away, and I can continue working on YouTube. Thankfully, I'm able to make enough where I can justify, like, if something costs me four hours, or if it,
Yeah.
if a problem persists, I think the question you have to ask yourself is, how much is your mental energy worth? Where if you have to negotiate with someone, if you have to stay on them for 2 weeks, hey man, are you going to send me the money? Like, what's that worth to your mental energy? I don't think it's worth it personally. So I don't mind covering it right away. I get the problem solved right away.
Yeah. So we'll kind of wrap it up. I know I communicated to both of you we'd go till 10:30, or at least 10:30. Is Vegas the same time zone right now? Is it 10:30?
It is, yeah.
Okay,
I can
cool.
answer I can make sure all the questions are answered.
Oh, cool.
I
All
don't
right.
have I have
Very cool.
boxing in like an hour. I've
right.
got to leave for boxing in an hour, but that's it.
Boxing. Oh, okay.
I'm taking
All right.
boxing classes.
I like it. So tell me about the exit strategy, because eventually both of you said, hey, not going to do this forever, might get out of it. I'm just going to guess the whole idea is you're going to vacate the property, clean it up, sell it, own a rock. But I don't know that for sure. Maybe you sell it to another house hacker. What are you thinking, Spencer?
My third house that I purchased that I was doing rent by room, I turned to an Airbnb recently.
Okay.
And so I don't do rent by room there. I think these houses one of them can be a single family just fine. The other one is tricky. It's a very good question, because it's something I've had long conversations with, because there's not a clear answer. My 7-bed house would not work as a single family. There's potential to turn it into a commercial building given the location. And so I do have exit strategies. However, I don't really think in the future. So I don't have a good answer for you, unfortunately.
All right. Fair enough. How about you?
I'll tell you my dream scenario, though. My dream scenario would be to have enough units where I could have a full-time property manager, because this business is so scalable. And fortunately, my time is spent elsewhere. But if I was going down the real estate for full-time path, I would pursue that. And my exit strategy would be simply actually hiring enough people where it takes up no time, and I'm still able to reap the cash flow benefits.
Yeah, that was the conversation you and I had 6 months ago. I was like, there's a business there, and there's
100%.
likely a business there in every city across the country, right?
Great.
I do think you have to be local. It's like you could really house hack, in 5 other states. I think one market, one rules, one set of, I think there's truly a business. And I do think it's a specific property manager. I can tell you that I would never have my property manager who has hundreds of units with me. I would never ask him to do house hacking. It's a different skill, experience, cost, all of that. So Todd, what's your exit strategy? You selling these things off one at a time vacant, or what's the deal?
I actually sold a bunch in 2020, but I sold them to other house hackers.
Oh.
So I was able to get a little bit of a premium, because I was like, hey, this is a cash flowing property. It's already rented. It's already furnished, what its common areas are. You can use the same maid as I have. Every house is already equipped with a TV and parking spots and all those things. So I sold a bunch off. I think I sold 5 houses in 2020 off market, and for a ton of money, and it worked out beautifully.
Okay.
Seller financing is always an option, by the way, because we already have we basically have a done for you business.
Exactly. I think that's probably the way to, with your 6-bedroom or whatever. I think that would be the one. Seller financing would somebody would pick that up.
Mm-hmm.
What do you set the thermostat at? I'm guessing this is in the house rules, but I don't know. Todd, you're chuckling.
In my house, it's always 68.
Okay.
In other houses, they can do what they want. I don't know.
All right. Spencer, is thermostat one of the rules of the road, or what's going on with thermostat?
Surprisingly, I haven't had many issues with that. One of my houses wasn't equipped with a strong AC system, so unfortunately we had some issues there. But I do Ecobee smart thermostat, and you can set the schedule, and I'm pretty reasonable with it, and I have not had an issue with people touching. I'm okay with people touching it, or people coming to me and saying, hey, do you mind turning it down a little bit? But not a problem. One benefit of buying the newer houses, if you can afford it, is you have better insulation, better AC. That is something that will massively reduce the amount of headaches, especially if you live in a city that gets hot like Vegas.
Do you allow people to wash their cars on the property, Spencer?
I've never ran into that, but yeah, I'd allow anything.
Okay. All right. But you wouldn't.
I'm still waiting for the day that a model wants to have a photo shoot.
It's Vegas, man. Lots of stuff happens.
I know. Yeah, I'm cool with it.
How about pets? We got a question on pets, dogs, cats.
I have 2 dogs in my current house. I'm okay with it. I would prefer not having it.
How about you, Todd? Pets, no-go?
I don't allow any pets of any kind. It's not that I'm an a-hole. It's that some people are allergic, and I can't subject my tenants to that.
Okay. Very cool. I'm trying to see other questions. Oh, can you say adults only? I actually don't know. Todd, do you have like a minimum age, 18 and above?
So I don't say adults only, but I'm able to weed out people with kids pretty easily. And I let them come to the conclusion that it's a bad idea. So I had a man, I think he was in his 40s, and he had a daughter who was 15. And he was like, yeah, I need a room for me and my daughter. And they were going to share a room or whatever.
Mhm.
And I was like, hey, man, here's the deal. In this house, it's all young men between the ages of like 22 and 25.
Yeah.
And they're all great guys. They're safe and, all that stuff. But it's not a great environment for a teenage girl. I was just living with them. I was like,
Yeah.
what's going to happen? She's going to get a crush on one of them,
Yeah.
and it's going to be a problem. And he was like, hey, I totally get it.
Yeah.
And then I had one other person where I think it was a single mom with a 2-year-old son.
Mhm.
And it was just one of those things where I was like, all of these people are in their 20s. There's going to be open alcohol. Like, again, it's not like a frat house, but they're young. They're in their 20s. They're going to be partying sometimes. And like, it's just not a good environment for a toddler. And she got it. So other than that, I haven't had any problems.
How about in Vegas, Spencer? It's a big old party town. Do you have an age limit?
The way I word it is I say I'm only able to accommodate one person per room. There's no chance I'd allow kids. I actually, if through Facebook, I don't respond. If I look through the profile and I can see, if I'm undecided, I'll ask them, are you looking for a room just for you or for others? And that's where they'll usually give you, oh, it's me and my girlfriend too. I'm just not able to accommodate 2 people, let alone a kid. I certainly do not want a kid in the house.
So that's a hard, I like that. I think that makes sense. So kind of the last question is maybe people trying to think too hard about house hacking. The question basically is, how do you handle tenants who routinely want to use the bathroom and the kitchen at the same time? Spencer, you're on.
Deal with it. You're an adult.
There you go.
I don't know how else to put it.
Yeah. Sometimes you just, How about you, Todd?
Well, I have big ass houses with big ass kitchens. So
just buy the most expensive.
yeah. And I got a lot of bathrooms. So
find a different one.
Yeah. My houses have an average of 4 bathrooms.
Okay.
And they have huge kitchens with big kitchen islands. And so multiple people can be cooking at the same time. If all the bathrooms are taken and need to go, I guess you got to hold it.
Yeah, you got a backyard.
and then go when you're done.
Got a backyard.
It rains enough in the upper Northwest, right?
That's right. Yeah, it rains a lot.
I don't really have a problem with that. I haven't had an issue with someone using the kitchen for hours or bathrooms being used too much.
Yeah.
Not a problem.
I think sometimes, everybody knows they have roommates and it goes the other way. I think adults kind of work it out. So looks like we got through all the questions. I appreciate both of you gentlemen. Spencer, you're on. You want to wrap up kind of, I think house hacking is genius. We started this way, hit it again. I want to thank you for what you do and obviously give a shout out to your YouTube channel. I'm assuming everybody watches it, but let's plug it.
YouTube is Spencer Cornelia. I think it's the best way to start for real estate people. And you can get creative if you have some type of issue with renting with roommates. If that's, you have a serious girlfriend or kids or something, there's a lot of options if you get creative where you can live on the property and have roommates. Awesome. I think it's going to become mandatory for a large percentage of Americans. And actually, here's another funny thing with people who kind of criticize the house hack model. I say, okay, cool. How much of your life is spent living with roommates? Oh, no, I love living alone. Okay, well, look, until 18 to 21, most people, 18, you live with roommates, your family. In college, you're living with roommates almost all the time, 100% of the time. So then there's a period of time where of 5 or 6 years where you don't live with roommates, where if you make enough money where you can live alone, afford it, and you're single, but then you meet someone and get married, and then you live with roommates for the rest of your life. So you live with roommates 98% of your time of your life. Why not get paid to do it?
Oh, I love that. That's well said. Todd, bring us home, buddy.
Yeah. First of all, thank you guys for taking your morning, and Michael and Spencer. Thanks for being on this show. House hacking is the best way to get started. I never like to be too authoritarian and judgmental, but straight up, if you're young and you don't have children and you're not considering house hacking, you're doing life wrong, because you literally get paid to live. I can't think of a bigger loophole than that. Like, you get paid to live. So I think it's amazing. I echo what Spencer said. Most of you have probably lived with roommates. Why not at least get paid to do it? Mm-hmm. With housing, you have 3 options. Unless you're going to be homeless or live with your parents forever, you have 3 options. Number 1 is you can rent a place. That means you're paying off somebody else's mortgage. Number 2, you can buy a place and live in it by yourself. You're paying off your own mortgage. Or number 3, you can house hack, in which you get other people to pay off your mortgage. Number 3 is the smartest option every single time. So do it while you can, because you might not want to live with Craigslist strangers forever. But if you can do it for a short window, it's going to set you up for I mean, theoretically the rest of your life.
Yeah. So as I wrap this up, there's a couple of things that I believe, and I believe even more after this 90 minutes. House hacking is the cheat code to wealth. House hacking, as I think Spencer said earlier, allows you to buy time. It de-stresses the situation. Something that Todd and I have talked about on our expert series is living below your means. For most of us, other than taxes, housing is our most expensive. And if you could take that to zero, or heaven forbid, get paid to live somewhere, life gets good. You can have the income snowball. You can buy the next one, move every year, every 18 months, all of these amazing things. House hacking needs to be taught. And again, house hacking doesn't have to be a young man's game or young woman's game. I believe house hacking needs to be taught about more for the baby boomers, for folks like my mom, right? Going through the last 30 years of life, empty nester by yourself, maybe there's a better way to do it. Not only income-wise, quality of life. Just house hacking has more upside. I think we talk ourselves into negativity. A lot of the questions here were corner cases. And folks, these are adults. Figure it out. So guys, Spencer, Todd, Bishop, you rock, Bishop. You were here for 90 minutes. Look at that. I'm going to get a screenshot of that. Spencer, Todd, thank you very much. Take care of yourself. This has been awesome.
Thanks, you guys.
Thanks, everyone.